I used to watch.
It was worse than 40 years.
25.
6
a little
million
wider.
plus listed. It's just,
Well, and I've heard the same thing from everybody I know who's in real estate, that 25 just sucked.
We've had friends who are in the Methodist hospital, they go down in the parking garage at
I've
night.
got a lot of friends that
Test.
are in the biz.
really
They're all like,
And low.
good thing I have stuff put aside.
I've taken the,
listen to this, we just went over to our neighbor's house.
this building off I-10, and had that repaired, and when we were going to Austin, we used it for garage.
Yeah.
And kitchen.
So I had like 3 inches clearance.
Good evening, everyone.
USAA or something.
Thank you for joining us for the February 5th, 2026 regular meeting of the Fair Oaks Ranch City Council. The time is 6:30 p.m. and we'll begin with the roll call. When I call your name, please say here or present. Mayor Maxton,
Here.
Councilmember Stroop. Here. Councilmember Roden,
Here.
Councilmember Olvera.
Here.
Councilmember Pearson,
Here.
Councilmember Parker,
Here?
and Councilmember Suarez. With all members present, a quorum is declared.
Thank you, Amanda. And a reminder to everybody that's here as part of the meeting, we do live broadcast this meeting. I'd like to welcome everybody that's in attendance here in the room, and also welcome all of those that are joining us by live broadcast. If you do get it, for those that are here in the room, if you do get an opportunity to speak as part of the meeting tonight, I ask that all comments be made from the podium and use the microphone at the podium. And the reason for that is the individuals that are watching by live broadcast cannot hear the comments unless they're spoken through the microphone. If you do get an opportunity to speak, I'd ask that you introduce yourself. If you're a resident, please state if you're a resident of Fair Oaks Ranch or not. Or if you're here with an organization as part of tonight's meeting, please state what organization that you are from as part of tonight's meeting. We did have one individual sign up as part of citizens to be heard, David, but David would like to wait until that specific item comes up. And so I will call you at that time to provide your comments. And other than that, nobody else signed up as part of citizens to be heard. Is there anybody else here tonight that didn't get an opportunity to sign up that would like to speak? Okay. With that, we'll move on to, we have two presentations tonight.
Did we skip the pledge?
Yeah, we probably should do that, right? Would everybody please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, Amanda. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Always trying to keep me straight. It's a full-time job. We have two presentations tonight. First for our school resource officers. And Charles and Amanda, would y'all please join me up here? I need glasses, sorry. School Resource Officer Day is coming up. It's recognition of school resource officers across the United States on February 15th. And I believe that's a Sunday. Are the schools doing anything specific or? On the 13th. On the 13th, okay. But currently we have 3 of our police officers from the Fair Oaks Ranch Police Department serving as school resource officers. Officer Amanda Pena, Officer Charles Starks, and Officer John Esquivel are serving. And John couldn't make it to tonight's meeting, but the comments that I'll provide are also for him as well. But you know, first and foremost, our officers provide a security environment at these schools. And as they were stemmed, or as the school resource officers came to be as part of our schools in our independent school district, it was to provide security within those schools. But as y'all have seen, the role goes well beyond just providing security. And honestly, it's to help build relationships with the students, with the families, with the teachers, and to bridge those gaps between the police department and our community. And y'all do a phenomenal job at it. And I just want to say I appreciate every day what y'all do for Bernie ISD, for Fair Oaks Ranch, and for all of our residents. And we do have some residents that are not in Fair Oaks Ranch, but attend the schools, so thank you for what you do for them also. You also serve as mentors, counselors, and what you do an exceptional job at is providing a role model for students. And I think your interaction with students builds a relationship where students get to know police officers and understand, and maybe even more personal relationship with police officers, which will help them in the future. So you have an impact today, you have an impact on the community, and honestly, you have the impact on the future as these individuals continue to develop and become adults. So thank you for what you do. You make a significant impact, and you definitely make a difference in our community. I do have a proclamation that I'd like to present for y'all. The City of Fair Oaks Ranch, whereas the National Association of School Resource Officers is dedicated to making schools and children safer by providing the highest quality training to school-based law enforcement officers. And whereas school resource officers bridge gaps between youth and law enforcement and embrace a triad concept of school policing, serving in informal counseling, education, and law enforcement roles to support students and communities that they serve. And whereas by training law enforcement officers to counsel, educate, and protect school communities, the men and women of the National Association of School Resource Officers continuously led by example and promote a positive image of law enforcement to school children and school communities. And whereas school resource officer programs across the globe are founded as collaborative efforts by police agencies, law enforcement officers, educators, students, parents, and communities to create safe learning environments, provide valuable resources to school staff members, foster positive relationships with students, and develop strategies to resolve problems that affect youth with the goal of protecting all children so that they can reach their fullest potential. And whereas school resource officers are valuable and essential members of the education community and deserve unwavering respect and support from the public in the pursuit of keeping schools and students safe. Now and therefore, the City Council of the City of Fair Oaks Ranch does hereby recognize February 15th, 2026 as School Resource Officer Day and further extend appreciation to our school resource officers and to all school resource officers for their vital services that they perform in their exemplary dedication to the communities that they represent. And I would encourage, let's give them a round of applause. We all gonna take a picture or? Oh, and I would encourage all residents to reach out, and if School Resource Officer Day is February 15th, but drop by the schools and say hi to these individuals and thank them for what they do. And if the schools are recognizing it on Friday the 13th, then that's probably a good day to come by and see them. What are you laughing at?
It's Friday the 13th.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Charles.
sir. Appreciate it.
And y'all can keep this. That's for y'all. Did y'all want to say anything?
Thank you very much.
Like that? They're gone.
Casey, can you come down and join me? So recognition of Government Communicators Day is on February 20th. And Casey is our communicator for the city. And tonight I want to recognize him for all that he has done for our city. As a city, we have demonstrated very clearly that we are committed to transparency in what we do as part of our operations. And that transparency could not happen without the efforts of Casey Parker. How long have you been here now? 4 years? And during that 4 years, Casey has taken our communications as a city from a good level to a very excellent level today. What he has done to get our information out in all of the platforms that he has access to to ensure that what we do as part of our city government day to day, informing our residents of what is going on. Informing is a big piece in understanding what we do as part of city operations, but Casey's also involved when we have emergency operations or critical incidents across the city. Similar to the winter storm that we had almost 2 weeks ago, and Casey was on call, putting out messages continually through Regroup and through Nextdoor and our other platforms to keep residents informed of the dangerous conditions across the city. And also when we have water main breaks as an example, not a true emergency, but it is a critical situation. And Casey's on call to access the Regroup platform as we notify our residents that we have shut the water off and water main repairs are being made, and informing residents of when they'll get the water back on. So overall, Casey, you play a critical role in what we do as part of our city. You do it very well, and you've also trained me very well, so thank you for all that you do. And I do have a proclamation that I'd like to present. And whereas the role of government communication professionals is to inform, educate, and engage their communities, and whereas the effective communication creates transparency in government operations, which in turn builds trust with residents. And whereas government communication professionals provide timely and accurate information that educates the public and builds awareness of government operations, ensuring residents are fully informed of actions throughout the city and able to contribute meaningfully to critical decisions. And whereas strong communications in government is essential to the foundational element of living in a democracy where citizens have a right for their voices to be heard and be involved in the decisions of their government. And whereas the City of Fair Oaks Ranch is proud to recognize Casey Parker for his efforts as the city's multimedia communications officer, and to acknowledge all government communicators for their professionalism, their dedication, and their service. Now and therefore, the City Council of the City of Fair Oaks Ranch does hereby proclaim February 20th, 2026 as Government Communicators Day in the City of Fair Oaks Ranch, Texas, and we encourage all residents to recognize and thank Casey Parker for all that he does, his dedication to ensuring the City of Fair Oaks Ranch maintains effective, transparent, and impactful communication strategies. So thank you, Casey. All right, February 15th, SRO Recognition Day, February 20th, Communicators Day. And thank y'all for bearing with me as we do recognize our city staff for what they do. With that, we'll move on to our consent agenda tonight. We have 5 items on the consent agenda. First is approval of the January 15th, 2026 regular city council meeting minutes. Second, approval of the January 21st, 2026 special city council meeting minutes. Third, approval of a resolution ordering a general election to be held on May 2nd, 2026 for the election of council members place 2 and place 6. To authorize the election to be held as a joint election and to authorize the city manager to execute all documents in connection therewith. The fourth item, approval of a cancellation of the February 19th, 2026 city council meeting. And last, approval of a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement with Atos Construction, LLC for the Front Gate Left Turn Lane Improvements Project. Is there any council member that would like to remove any of the items from consent to consideration? Everybody good? Then can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? Is it Scott? And a second?
Second.
From Dale? All in favor of approval of the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Thank you, council. And with that, we'll move on to our consideration items tonight. And the first is the consideration and possible action approving the second reading of an ordinance of the Council of the City of Fair Oaks Ranch, Texas, amending the Fair Oaks Ranch Code of Ordinances, Chapter 12, Traffic and Vehicles, Article 12.01, General Provisions, Section 12.01.003, Prima Facie Speed Limit by reducing the maximum speed limit on Nola Hasse to 25 miles per hour. And Carol, are you gonna? Did you plan on providing an intro, or? Well, we did consider this at the last meeting,
Yes.
and Carol did a very thorough job providing all the information that was part of the packet. Does any council member have any additional questions related to it that Carol could answer?
Yes, I'm here to answer any questions about the item, if needed.
Is there anybody here that would have any questions related to this item? Okay.
I do have a very, very short presentation if you need it. It's just a recap of all the events thus far. So,
I don't know.
I don't think so.
perfect, thank you.
Thanks, Carol. I apologize, Carol, for putting you on the spot. Then with that, from council, can I get a motion to approve the second reading of an ordinance amending the Fair Oaks Ranch Code of Ordinances, Chapter 12, Traffic and Vehicles, Article 12.01, General Provisions, Section 12.01.003, Prima Facie Speed Limit by reducing the maximum speed limit on Nola Hasse to 25 miles per hour? So moved. From Ruben?
Second.
Is that
Jonathan.
Jonathan? It's that booming voice. Any other discussion from council? Everybody good? The motion on the table, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
And I count, so the nays, Keith and Scott. Everybody else, okay? With a count 5 in favor, 2 against, the motion is approved. And with that, we'll move on to our second consideration item tonight, which is the consideration and possible action approving the Post Oak subdivision, Phase 1 tree removal and preservation plan. And Anthony.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and attendees. My name is Anthony Liblick, and I am the Environmental Program Manager for the city. I'm here to present consideration item number 12, which can be found on page 83 in your packet. The Post Oak Subdivision Phase 1 Tree Removal and Preservation Plan was originally presented to the P&Z meeting on January 8th of this year. This original preliminary plat and tree plan consists of 60 one-acre minimum lots for residential lots, 5 lots for green space. After a thorough review and discussion with the developer and staff, the commission recommended approval of the plan with the condition that the developer work further to limit the number of trees to be removed, in addition, in particular with regards to heritage trees. The following tree removal and preservation plan that is currently being presented has been amended by Pape Dawson, taking into account the commissioner's conditions. 13 heritage and 12 protected trees have changed from being removed to being saved, and 2 protected trees have been changed from saved to removed. These amendments were made possible due to changes in the drainage design. This slide depicts the revised tree plan showing how many total trees are to be removed or saved. The majority of revisions to this plan come from a change to the design of this drainage pond. It's in the upper left-hand corner. This slide depicts the aerial site of the entire Post Oak property. Tree removal will only occur within the green space, which is where trees are not planned to be removed. The blue areas, which are the detention ponds for drainage, and within right-of-ways, which are shown in gray. The Post Oak development is vested under the previous subdivision regulations. Chapter 10, Article 3, Section 6 states that it is unlawful to remove any tree that is 9 caliper inches or larger when measured 4.5 feet above the ground without first submitting a tree plan identifying the location, caliper, species, and canopy cover of all healthy trees along with a preliminary plat. Also, City Council approval is required prior to removal of any heritage trees. Additionally, Post Oak is tied to a development agreement which has stronger tree mitigation requirements, supporting the city's efforts to maintain tree cover and protect its natural environment, which states, for every tree between 18 to 24 inches, which is a protected tree, 1 2.5-inch tree will be replanted. For every tree over 24 inches, which is a heritage tree, 3 2.5 caliper inch trees will be replanted. All tree islands also must be addressed within designated right-of-ways, and in this phase, there are no tree islands. As stated previously, the developer has worked with staff to address the commissioner's conditions, and any changes can be seen on the following slides in red or blue. 13 heritage trees and 12 protected trees have changed from marked to be removed to now being saved, and 2 protected trees have changed from being saved to be removed. These amendments were made possible by changing the design of drainage easements. A grand total number of heritage trees to be removed is 42, and with a mitigation ratio of 3:1, this means that 126 trees will be replanted. The total number of protected trees to be removed is 83. With a 1:1 mitigation ratio, 83 trees will be replanted. This brings the grand total number of required trees to be replanted to 209 in order to meet mitigation requirements. However, the developer is going beyond mitigation requirements and planting 4 trees per lot on 64 lots, which will provide 256 trees, yielding a surplus of 47 trees. At this time, staff has reviewed the Post Oak subdivision Phase 1's tree removal and preservation plan and recommends approval based on conformance with the previous subdivision ordinance and the development agreement. The developer, Matt Geisweit, and I are here to address any comments or questions that you may have. Thank you.
Any questions from council? Go ahead.
What species of trees are being replanted?
Can you repeat the end part of that?
What species of trees are planned to be for the replanting?
Replanted? That I don't know. And following our ordinance, it has to be a Texas native species.
Are the oaks in that? Are there some oaks that are off the list because they're susceptible?
Yes, there's a specific note in the tree plan on sheet 1 that states that it has to follow our oak wilt ordinance, so no red oaks can be replanted. So it's red oaks, Texas red oaks, a blackjack oak, and post oak.
Working with the developer to see that we get some more biodiversity, trees that are not susceptible to oak wilt at all.
Matt, would you like to come up here to kiss us? Yes, yes.
Good question. Anybody else? Go ahead, Ruben.
And I know that in the presentation of materials, there's sort of a focus of 125 protected and heritage trees being removed. But I think it should also be highlighted that out of the protected trees, 253 are being saved and 126 heritage trees are being saved. And so on my math, and I'm terrible at math, I think 75% of protected and heritage trees are being saved.
That is correct.
People would just look at the summary of today's meeting, they're like, how could they approve you removing 125 trees? But really, almost 400 are being saved. So I think that was a good effort to save those trees, and it's not a situation where land is being clear cut to make room for more homes. It's really the removal that's within the drainage or the infrastructure easements or areas, correct?
Correct.
Great point.
Any other species besides live oaks were studied?
Were any other
In
species?
the tree, in the tree inventories?
So the,
Yeah, that might have been that.
so of so for the heritage trees, all of them are live oaks that are gonna be removed. For protected trees, it's live oak, post oak, blackjack oak, there's even one red oak and 2 cedar elm. But it's predominantly live oak for both.
And this doesn't,
Go ahead.
this doesn't include, like, whenever you go out there to put the pad for the house down, that'll be a different, they'll pull a different permit for those trees, or
So.
is that included in this? Are the house sites actually,
So, no. So everything that's being removed in this plan is just along for the right-of-ways or utility easements.
right? That's my
Once the,
understanding.
the property has been platted, that will then go under private property laws, what we have in the city currently.
Sure. Is there an estimate on, what percentage of trees we'll lose right there just after it's all said and done?
I'm not sure, because once we have everything in the blue and then the gray taken out, that'll be then each individual lot it'll determine on when the developer comes and builds the home.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
The green space, however, will all still be there.
That answer, man, that answer your question? More or less. I believe, so as part of this tree plan, this covers the right-of-ways and the utilities that are being put in as part of it.
And that's it.
After that, it really goes back to the developer, and the developer works with the builders to preserve the remaining trees as builders come in to build on those lots. It'll be private property.
It'll be private property, private residential from then on.
It's a good question. I mean, yes, sir.
I'd like some clarification, because you say it's private property. When does it become private property? When the developer purchases it?
Do you want to take this, Lee?
I mean, I think the question I've got is, and maybe to Jonathan's point, is that what protects the lots individually? Where do they fall within the UDC for tree removal? So if there is a lot that's being developed, a 1 acre lot, and there's a heritage tree and some protected trees, what happens to those trees as far as getting permission to take them down?
So to answer your first question, currently right now, it is an undeveloped plot of land, and it's a single plot of land. So it will not be subdivided until the plat gets recorded. At that point, when the plat gets recorded, all that huge lot becomes a bunch of single-family residential lots. And at that point, that's when it becomes residential. That's the transition. Once that plat is recorded, then that's no longer one big piece of property, it's a bunch of individual lots.
Right.
And so then at that point, it goes into residential, which then follows those guidelines as far as a tree preservation plan for tree removal at that process.
So how is that plan compared to this in the UDC?
That would depend on whenever they actually pull the permits to construct, because we don't know the footprint of the structure that's going to be built on those individual lots. At that point, when they get site plans, pull residential permits, and they have, because a lot of these more than likely will be custom homes, so they're going to have their plot of land, and at that point, they can say, well, we want our house in this area to save this tree, because you have to think larger heritage trees maintain value in a lot. So they would want, it'd be ideal to preserve it. But also you have to look at orientation of where they want to put that piece of, that home. So they will, and this is my assumption, if a builder comes and looks at a lot, they're gonna look at the flattest part of the lot to try to build it, or the minimum. So that's kind of how they're able to save that sort of heritage trees once they start pulling those permits.
Yeah, I think that makes common sense, that's logical. I just don't know, how do our rules apply to, like, say, when they come for permitting, and let's say they say we gotta take out a heritage tree, then what do we do here at the city?
Well, currently, right now, if they come, residential doesn't apply towards tree preservation.
So what do we do in regular course of business?
In the most recent change to this code of the UDC, so exempt involvement from tree preservation requirements.
Okay, so.
Over my objection.
So so that becomes residential at the point that's platted, and then no longer does this part of the UDC apply to those individual lots, correct?
Correct.
Effectively correct, yes.
They would, I would hope they would try to preserve it.
Well, sure, but there is no permission needed at that point. They just have to get their permit based on
Correct.
the codes, the building codes. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I think on a future agenda, we're gonna study,
Next month.
we'll study that again next month to see if there's anything that we can on, or, you know, for subdivisions going forward, or possibly when these lots get platted, I don't know how it would fall, but, well, when these lots get platted to the individual.
Yes, ma'am.
The trees that are gonna get replanted, the 200 and whatever trees that are gonna get replanted, are we making sure that those trees are gonna be replanted? A, they'll be able to prosper, but B, where they're not gonna get cut down in the future when we have replotting of the individual lots.
Typically, the developers will work with them and put them in a place where they're not immediately gonna get, they're not gonna put them directly in the center, for example, on a lot, just because that wouldn't really be helpful to anybody.
Right. I just
Usually
wanna
they're
make
put-
sure of that.
Do you concur, Matt? Yes.
So those are mitigated trees, and so if you were to remove a mitigated tree, then they're not in compliance with the DA or the
If the
tree preservation
developer
plan.
doesn't, if the developer removes the mitigated tree, but what if, once it goes into the individual lots?
I'm assuming if they're gonna plant this tree, they're not gonna plant it before the construction happens on the lot. They'll probably ideally plant these after they have a site plan and all that.
With the individual plots already out there. Okay, awesome.
The ones that are in, like front gate, for example, those mostly went in front yards, but some went in back, but it was after the entire house had already been built out.
Did Frontgate have the same sort of plan and sort of restrictions, or did they sort of clear a lot of land initially?
I was not here during that time. I have read their plan, but I believe they had really similar. But let's have Lee discuss.
No, I was just gonna say, unfortunately, I was not here along with Frontgate as well either. That was before my
Or what
time
about
here.
arbors?
I was not here before the arbors as
Okay.
well.
They would have fallen under the same
Yeah.
chapter 10 of the subdivision, or is it, so the distinction here being in the DA, we increased the mitigation requirements for this development, but the preservation requirements were the same. under
It's probably
Chapter
most
10.
comparable to Stone Creek Ranch, and those trees were all placed after or in different spots along green spaces or in the amenity center.
And a lot of those were preserved on the individual lots?
Correct.
And it's the same developer?
Correct.
Anybody else? Well, David Horwath had signed up as part of Citizens to be Heard, and I believe wanted to provide some comments from the perspective of the Planning and Zoning Commission as part of this. So David, if you'd like to present your comments.
My name is David Horwath. I live on Turf Paradise Lane in Windermere 2. I am on the Planning and Zoning Commission and have been since day one of the Planning and Zoning Commission. some very quick history on what we have been going on within the Planning and Zoning Commission. Since the start of it, we have been working on arbors, stone oak, elkhorn, now post oak, and oak bend. Every one of them came in on a development agreement long before the start of the Planning and Zoning Commission. There are very few things that we're able to do under the UDC. When this question came up at our meeting, January 8th, something like that, we, at that first point, virtually all of us had objections to having 56 heritage trees cutting down. However, after we asked exactly the same questions that you as the city council just asked, basically we were told that this is under a development agreement, and it was under Chapter 10, I think that's what it was at that time, and that we had to approve this and send it forward to city council, because legally the developer followed all the rules, and they followed the rules of the city council approved tree planting. So that's why we approved it, and we also asked the developer if he could see what he can do to save some more trees. So basically the reason that we approved it was because legally we had to.
Thanks, David. And thank both you and Bobby for attending tonight's meeting as part of the P&Z. Any other questions from council? Any questions from anyone here tonight? Reference the tree plan. From council, can I get a motion to approve the Post Oak subdivision Phase 1 tree removal and preservation plan?
So moved.
Jonathan, and a second?
Second?
From Scott. Any other comments from council? Motion on the table, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion is approved. Thanks, Anthony. And we'll move on to the third consideration item tonight, which is consideration and possible action approving the Post Oak subdivision Phase 1 preliminary plat establishing a total of 65 lots from the applicant and property owner, FAR Project SPV LPC. Jessica.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor Maxton, council members, and attendees. My name is Jessica Relucio, city planner for the city of Fair Oaks Ranch. This agenda item is 13, which begins on page 107 of the agenda packet, and the presentation begins on page 123 of the agenda packet. The purpose of the item is for City Council to consider and take possible action approving the Post Oak subdivision Phase 1 preliminary plat with conditions. First, here's a brief background of the subject area. It's located north of the intersection of Rolling Acres Trail and Ammon Road. The zoning is neighborhood residential, which is a minimum of 1 acre single-family lots, and there's a public improvement district in the area. This is the first of 4 phases, and the total Post Oak subdivision is about 344 acres. This plat covers a portion of it known as Phase 1. Next is an overview of the preliminary plat received by staff from Pape Dawson Consulting Engineers on December 2025. As part of the review criteria, there's the development agreement, which requires the 2014 subdivision Chapter 10 regulations to be applied, with the exception of the minimum lot frontages, drainage and erosion control standards, and the tree mitigations, which was just covered. This Phase 1 covers 65 lots, 60 single-family residential lots, 1 acre minimum, and 5 easement lots. The Planning and Zoning Commission conditionally approved this item to City Council. Next, staff recommends the approval of the Post Oak subdivision Phase 1 preliminary plat with the following conditions. Some of the conditions are aesthetic, meaning it's a cleanup of text, and other conditions are design edits, meaning it's more of a cleanup of text, which I will elaborate on here. The first one is an aesthetic edit, meaning the development shall correct the mayor's signature block to include subdivision to state Post Oak subdivision Phase 1 on sheets 2 through 7. 2 is an aesthetic edit, stating the developer shall edit general notes and remove private streets from note 1 on sheet 1 since there are no private streets. 3 is a design update, and the applicant shared that it's already fixed as it was a program calculation. And that is that the developer shall revise block 7, lot 6, street frontage length of about 98 feet to meet the minimum required of 120 feet and to please address accordingly on sheet 2. 4 is an aesthetic edit, which is that the developer shall label lot 21 as greenbelt and designate the location of the detention pond as a drainage easement. Lot 21 is missing a label on sheets 3, 4, and 5. 5 is a design edit, and the applicant is aware and how it will change the plat, which is minimal to none. And that is that the developer shall address all comments and obtain the approval of stormwater management plan from the engineering manager. 6 is an aesthetic edit, and that states that under a new section to add temporary easements or under general notes that the temporary easement shown hereon is granted for construction and related purposes such as drainage easements and shall terminate upon completion of construction and acceptance of improvements. Upon termination of the temporary easement, the easement area shall be restored to a condition reasonably similar to its pre-construction state, and then remove the reference in the document number. And then this is to help cover during the construction phase, such as a turnaround for fire trucks for temporary easements. All of these comments and enhancements in the plat will be addressed for the final plat submittal, which will go to Planning and Zoning Commission for recommendation of approval or just recommendation to City Council. And then City Council will have the final action on the final plat. This concludes the presentation, staff, and we also have the developer here for any questions. Thank you.
Any questions from council? You did a great job.
Okay.
You answered all the questions. Any questions from anyone here tonight? Then from council, can I get a motion to approve the preliminary plat for the Post Oak subdivision Phase 1 with the conditions that were previously stated? From Keith, and a second?
Second.
From Ruben. Any other discussion from council? Motion on the table, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion is approved. Thank you, Jessica. Our next consideration item is the consideration and possible action approving a resolution authorizing the execution of a professional services agreement with Valley View Consulting LLC for investment advisory services and the expenditure of the required funds and execution of all applicable documents by the city manager. And Summer, turned over to you.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am Summer Fleming, the Director of Finance. So tonight, I am bringing forward this resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a professional services agreement for investment advisory services. And this item begins on page 127 of the agenda packet. As the city's fund balances have grown, the way we manage those funds has become increasingly important to overall financial stability. So this item reflects a shift in how we manage investments as the city's financial position continues to strengthen and become more complex. As a reminder, City Council updated the investment policy in September 2024. And so this recommendation responds to prior council questions about whether the city is using the most effective investment strategies and how we can further diversify the portfolio while still maintaining safety and liquidity. So currently, the city's investment portfolio is invested entirely in local government investment pools. And these pools are safe, liquid, and will continue to play an important role in our investment strategy. But the challenge with pools is that they earn a daily market rate. So when interest rates rise, earnings increase quickly, but when rates fall, those earnings also decline almost immediately. And so for context, TexPool averaged around 2.2% in 2019, dropped below 0.5% in 2020, and eventually fell near zero. And so the cities that relied solely on pools, they saw investment revenue decline very quickly, while cities with diversified portfolios and laddered investments, they were able to continue earning higher yields on investments that were purchased earlier. And so at the city's current investment balance, changes in rates now have a more meaningful impact on the city revenues and overall financial stability. So relying on a single investment vehicle can create missed opportunities to lock in yields when rates are favorable, and that can make earnings less predictable over time. At the same time, the city does not have dedicated in-house investment staff to monitor markets daily, model cash flows, or structuring maturity ladders. So this service would provide that professional capacity without adding full-time staff while keeping full control with the city. So staff issued a competitive request for proposals and received 9 submittals, and that provided a strong pool of qualified firms. Valley View Consulting was selected based on municipal experience, expertise with PFIA compliant portfolios, their overall approach, and pricing. They maintain offices in Austin and the DFW area, and they currently advise numerous Texas local governments, including Cibolo, Round Rock, Georgetown, Floresville, the Edwards Aquifer Authority, among others. They are an SEC-registered investment advisor, and they have a specific focus on Texas public funds and municipal portfolios. So their role is to function as an extension of city staff. They would provide market monitoring, cash flow analysis, investment timing and laddering strategies, broker and dealer vetting, and manage the competitive process for soliciting and evaluating investment bids, along with compliance support, reporting, and training. So this would allow staff to focus on operations while ensuring the portfolio is being actively and strategically managed. So what changes is that the city would gain that independent expertise, the professional market monitoring, and a more structured investment strategy. So rather than reacting to interest rate changes, our portfolio can be positioned in advance. Investments can be laddered over time to help stabilize earnings and reduce dependence on a single investment vehicle. What does not change is control. All services are non-discretionary. So the city would retain authority over every investment decision, and all investments must comply with the council-adopted policy and the PFIA. And to clarify the distinction, under discretionary services, a city would turn over their funds to a firm to then invest within agreed parameters, and that's not what's being proposed tonight. Under this non-discretionary model, the city would keep possession of all funds and approve every transaction. The advisor does not hold or move city funds. The city's investments that we purchased, such as treasuries or CDs, would remain in safekeeping with Frost Bank, which already serves as the city's depository. And Frost would provide the custody and settlement services. So the advisor's role would be advisory. They would provide the analysis, strategy, and recommendations. So the advisory fee is 0.05% of balances up to $50 million with a lower rate above that level. Based on the city's current balance, the estimated annual cost is approximately $15,000, with a reduced cost this current fiscal year due to a mid-year start. Our adopted budget this year is $5,000 for this service, and so staff anticipates the remaining amount could be absorbed through savings in other categories and increased investment earnings. Valley View Consulting is an independent, and they receive no commissions or referral fees, ensuring their recommendations are made solely in the city's best interest. This agreement follows our standard professional services agreement terms. It includes termination provisions. And so the intent is not to chase higher returns, but to reduce earnings variability, improve our strategic positioning, and maintain more consistent earnings across interest rate cycles. So even a modest stabilization of earnings during a declining rate environment can help offset the cost of this service. So in summary, as the city's financial position continues to grow, investment management becomes less about where the funds are held and more about how they're structured over time. This service would support our long-term financial planning by diversifying investment timing, reducing reliance on a single investment vehicle. It would support our bond fund investment strategies and position the city for more stable investment revenues as market conditions change. So staff recommends approval of this resolution, authorizing the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with Valley View Consulting. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so for $15,000 a year, like, what is Valley View going to do? Are they, I mean, if we're still gonna have to look at everything and give the yay or nay, I just need to understand what exactly is it that they are doing for that money.
So it wouldn't be a $15,000 flat fee. That is based on what our current balance is. So if our balance is $30 million, that's what the fee would be, because it is 0.05% of the assets. They would actually do the daily market monitoring, cash flow analysis. We would provide them information, our historical usage, bond funds, our capital improvement plan. So they'll do the cash flow analysis. They'll actually put together the timing of investments to match our cash outflows, what we'll need, provide the laddering strategies. They would vet the different broker and dealers that would be authorized in our investment policy, but also do the competitive bid, the competitive process on the investments that we might purchase from these brokers and dealers. They would do the compliance reporting, training, do the quarterly report. So they're doing all the work that would enable us to make educated purchases.
And I ask all these things because obviously we have a fantastic finance department that wins all these awards all the time. And I just want to make sure that we're not handing off something to somebody and we're going to be getting a subpar product compared to what we already get, right? Because you guys have set the bar very high. And I just want to make sure that if we're going to have somebody come in to assist you guys, that they are also going to meet that same standard.
I think historically and currently, because we don't have an investment expert on staff, we aren't doing daily market monitoring, besides the fact that we don't have the capacity to do that with how we're currently staffed. Yeah, they would, we are only invested in pools simply because we don't have the knowledge or the time to look into all the other investment options we have, put together a laddering strategy. And especially now that just in 6 years, our fund balances have tripled from 10 million to 30 million with the bond issuances. That's a lot more to have to think about with your bond proceeds, arbitrage calculations. So they would actually do a lot of the work that we cannot do in-house right now.
How often, like, are we entering into this agreement for X number of years, or is this something that would be reviewable after each year?
Right, it's a one-year agreement. It is using our standard professional services agreement. So it's 1 year, so exactly right. If we didn't find that the collaboration with the firm and staff wasn't working, or we didn't see a benefit, we would be able to, yeah, look elsewhere. Yes.
Summer, just, I'm gonna clarify because I think it might help too. Right now, we just invest in the pools because that's what we've been doing and they've done well.
Right.
So what you're saying, just to maybe clarify for the council, is that this firm will give us other investment vehicles that are investment quality vehicles like treasuries, agencies, Ginnie Mae's, different things other than just the pool. Because the pool is like a mutual fund of government security. So
Right.
your expectation from these guys is that when we spend the amount of money for their services, we will improve our bottom line beyond that cost and also help with the compliance and the, correct?
Right.
And also help us manage cash flow, right? So,
Yes.
so we got bonds coming and we got revenue coming in, and then at some point we pay out for the repairs of the road. They would know those dates. And if they said, if we didn't have a payment out, say, for 2 years, and we might buy a 2-year treasury and know that that's going to mature about the time that we need to pay. So this whole thing is to really improve our whole portfolio, right? So that we have a better bottom line. Even though we've done well, we're just in a big pool.
We've done well the last couple of years,
Yeah.
but as I mentioned, in 2019 and 2020, we were almost making 0% with TechSpool. So the cash flow analysis is how we would start. That'll
Yeah.
determine how much we need to keep liquid, which we would keep in the pools. Even when the rates do decline, we would still have to keep some liquid, and that's the safest option. But they would also help us determine how much we could set aside for longer-term investments within our approved policy. So that way, as interest rates do go down, we will have funds invested in other investments that can help offset any declines that the pools would see.
Yeah, and just a comment on the market, in 2019, 2020, everybody was getting nothing. I mean, even treasuries were paying zero. So the pool pretty much, represented the market. So we don't lose control. They come to you and say, here's some recommendations. You look at our policy, they know our policy, and you come back and make those investment decisions where you need our approval, you'll ask for it, right?
Right, so council wouldn't need to approve individual investment transactions because as the designated investment officer, I would be able to operate within the parameters established by council in the investment policy. And council would maintain oversight through approval of that investment policy and receipt of the quarterly investment report, which provides visibility into the portfolio transactions and activity. So you would see that every quarter.
And so the other cities that are using it, like, would you say Cibolo was one of them that use them that currently?
That use Valley View, yes.
So did Valley View show you their performance compared to the pool? Did they say, hey, we yielded 0.5% better than the pool? Were they able to give you all some analysis there about their past recommendations? Did they give you that?
No, we didn't. I don't recall seeing that specifically from any of the 9 firms that submitted. We called references on the 3 top firms that the selection committee chose. And so we checked with references. Again, it's not necessarily about chasing the higher yields, but it's also so we don't have all our eggs in one basket. We used to only have $10 million just a couple of years ago. We now have $30 million that requires some more strategic planning and safeguarding our assets when the interest rates do drop.
So one thing I'd ask that you would ask them to do as part of this agreement, so we go into the agreement and, after the annual event at the end of the year, the recommendations that we accepted from them and how our portfolio performed, I'd like them to give us a look back to that, how that performance compared to if we just stayed in the pools. So that next year from now, we can say, hey, we spent $15,000, but hey, we made an extra $100,000. Good deal.
Yes.
Or we spent $15,000 and we only made $5,000 extra. Not so good a deal. So if we can have them do a look back for us based on the recommendations that we accept, because we have to accept them,
Yes.
right? And they say, recommend this and we take it. I'd like to see how that at the end of the year compared to us just doing nothing but the pool.
I agree.
That'd be helpful.
I mean, that would be a plan of ours as we're
Yeah.
assessing whether it's
worth it or not.
beneficial for the city to continue with an advisor. We would look at that in
Yep.
addition to just really how well we collaborate with the firm, how much attention they're giving us, how much they're helping us. So
Okay.
yeah, we would evaluate them on several things besides earnings.
Perfect.
I would just add one caveat to that, council member, that while we certainly can and will do that, a 1-year look back will probably be limited because a lot of these will be longer term investments. Probably take.
Well, actually, you'll see the yields. The yields, yes, you might have a 2-year treasury note.
But you can look at your performance after 1 year,
Yeah.
certainly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We'll see
Understanding
what the
that
yields are. Yeah.
It's going to be gradual and long term.
Yeah, if we're investing longer and getting less yield, then that's not a good decision, but. Right?
The
So-
intent, is to do better over the long
Right,
term, is what I'm saying.
Okay. I'm done.
No, Keith covered mine when he talked about Valley View.
Okay. Everybody good? Thanks, Keith. Any questions from anyone here tonight? Then from council, can I get a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the execution of a professional services agreement with Valley View Consulting LLC for investment advisory services?
So moved.
Keith? And second from Dale. Any other discussion from council?
I would say that the goal is definitely to make more money, right?
Always.
I mean, security, sure, but I mean, if we're paying somebody for the service, that's security where it's at right now, I think.
Summer, is there a time frame for when this was going to kick off or get started?
Well, we just had a call with Valley View today and said that we would notify them tomorrow whether the agreement has been approved. And so after the agreement is signed, we would likely start working with them, giving them some of our information to start putting together that cash flow analysis. They'll do a review of our investment policy, see what brokers and dealers are already authorized in that policy. But yeah, we would start essentially as soon as the agreement is signed.
Really?
That doesn't necessarily mean that we'll all of a sudden start making purchases. There's a little bit of legwork and, research to do first, but we will begin working with them immediately.
Thank you.
Any other discussion, comments from council? Motion on the table, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next, we have, the next three consideration items deal with changes to our City of Fair Oaks Ranch personnel policies. The first one is consideration and possible action approving a resolution amending the City of Fair Oaks Ranch's personnel policy related to classification and compensation administration. I'll turn it over to Joanna.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. My name is Joanna Merrill. I'm the Director of Human Resources here at the city. Tonight's item is going to be a brief kind of follow-up and overview of what we discussed in the, as a recap of the adjustments that council requested during the previous workshop on January 15th. The agenda item here starts on page 162. And through this, where council reviewed and proposed personnel policies and updates tied to the implementation strategy and long-term maintenance of the city's compensation and benefit frameworks, we are going to start tonight with Chapter 1. So in Chapter 1, no changes were actually requested by City Council during the prior workshop. So this section really is just being brought forward for consideration without any modification. This update, just as a recap, was focused on updating and formalizing the administration and the maintenance of the classification and compensation study that council previously adopted. As outlined in the final report, it would establish a regular plan review cycle of every 3 to 5 years, aligning salary placements and adjustment decisions within that adopted framework as well, and providing a structured guideline for evaluating COLA adjustments as part of the annual budget process. Just as another quick reminder, any cost of living adjustments that would come from this are still going to come back to City Council for review and final approval for adoption into the budget, as I'll continue to go on in the next slide. So the associated COLA adjustment procedures establish just administrative guidelines requiring staff to annually review the CPIU and apply the appropriate procedural level when bringing recommendations back to City Council during the budget process. If the COLA falls between 0% and 3%, it may be incorporated administratively by the city manager, but as a part of the regular budget process again. If the COLA exceeds that 3% but is less than 5%, the city manager will direct staff to conduct a limited peer market review, just to confirm consistency, transparency with our peer market. Following that review, City Council will again be notified by an official memorandum that will be placed on a regular meeting at a City Council agenda, again, as part of the budget process. In this last one, in that exceptional review, if the COLA is 5% or greater, we are going to be treating that as an exception due to the potential budget impacts that could possibly have. And the city manager will bring a more formal consideration item to City Council outlining any potential recommended approaches that we have at that time. But the theme across all of these scenarios is that these guidelines are intended just to promote consistency and transparency, and final COLA approval will continue to remain solely with the City Council as part of the budget process. At this time, since there were no recommended changes or modifications to this chapter as previously discussed in the workshop, staff is recommending approval of a resolution amending the City of Fair Oaks Ranch's personnel policy, Chapter 1, General Policies. And at this time, if council has any questions.
Questions? Let's do it. Everybody else good? Yep. All right. Any questions from anyone here tonight? Then can I get a motion to approve a resolution amending the City of Fair Oaks Ranch's personnel policies, Section 1.10, Classification and Compensation Administration?
So moved.
Jonathan, and a second?
Second.
Emily. Any other discussion from council? With the motion on the table, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion is approved. And we'll move on to the second one, which is the consideration and possible action approving a resolution amending the City of Fair Oaks Ranch personal policies related to paid parental leave.
Thank you, Mayor. So again, this next update was in the Chapter 8 leave section of our personnel policies. And in this particular section, this was the one proposing the addition of the paid parental leave program. The paid parental leave program, again, will not replace our current FMLA program, but it will supplement it by providing up to 6 weeks of paid parental leave that will run concurrently with FMLA when applicable. Again, kind of as a repeat, there were no changes that were requested by City Council during the prior workshop on this section, so this item is also being brought forward for your consideration without modification. So staff, again, is just recommending that we move to approve a resolution amending the City of Fair Oaks Ranch's personnel policies for Chapter 8 under the leave section.
Questions?
Questions?
Yes, sir.
Just, I noticed where it's anytime within 12 months of having a child or adopting a child. Is that FMLA too?
So it is one of the requirements under FMLA whenever you either give birth or adopt or foster. There is a section of that called bonding time, and that is up to the first 12 months after that event. In any scenario, it's still the same cap on the number of up to 12 weeks. So it is FMLA, so we just want to make sure that they tie together. Yeah.
Anybody else? Questions from anyone here tonight? And for council, can I get a motion to approve a resolution amending the City of Fair Oaks Ranch's personnel policies for paid parental leave, Section 8.02, definition of paid parental leave, and Section 8.07, paid parental leave policy? from Ruben, and a second.
Second.
Keith, any other comments from council? The motion on the table, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion is approved. And we'll move on to the third change to the personnel policy, which is consideration and possible action approving a resolution amending the City of Fair Oaks Ranch personnel policies related to tuition reimbursement program.
All right, so this final update, as again discussed in the previous workshop on January 15th for Chapter 17, this one was proposing the addition of a tuition reimbursement program. City Council did actually recommend a few targeted changes to this policy, which I will walk through here on the next slide. However, I did want to go over some of the core elements in this program that are going to remain unchanged. So the program will continue to reimburse up to $2,500 per semester, not to exceed $5,000 annually. It will apply to coursework, required books, mandatory fees, as that was a question that council had asked in the previous workshop. And these items are going to be directly related to job-related knowledge, skills. We are going to still require a grade of C or better to be eligible at minimum for that reimbursement. And based on the feedback that we received from City Council in the previous workshop, there were two specific targeted updates that were made, and those changes are reflected in the updated policy in the agenda packet. First was the prorated repayment period. That was extended from the 24 months to 36 months, ensuring that the city's investments in this professional development program is appropriately protected over a longer amount of time. Secondly, was the policy now clarifies that each tuition reimbursement will require a separate agreement, and each agreement is going to carry its own repayment obligation as well. So that is just a recap summary of the items that were updated and changed as a part of City Council's request during the previous workshop. With that, staff is recommending approval of the resolution amending Chapter 17, Professional Development of the city's personnel policies, and that will end tonight's presentation if council has no further questions.
You good?
Good.
I have a question. Is this type of benefit, like the paid parental leave I get, but a tuition reimbursement benefit, is this something that's actually preventing the city from hiring or retaining good employees?
I wouldn't necessarily say that it is preventing everybody from leaving, but it is definitely a retention tool and an incentive to get employees to stay with us for a longer term when we have limited movement within so many of our departments. So many of our departments are 1 or 2 people strong, and they're not going anywhere. And to be able to develop them professionally is definitely a benefit over the long term to give our staff growth opportunities and also to bring that value add to the city as well.
But would getting further education, getting reimbursed, would that even allow movement? Is the movement, lack of movement because of just the positions available and the people that we have and they're sticking around, so there's nowhere to go? Would this actually change that?
It wouldn't change that necessarily. That may be something that would need to be evaluated in a different area, but it definitely would provide that sense of movement. There is a concept of upward mobility, and whether that's in your educational development or your professional development, even within a position that you hold over a long term, value when an organization invests in your personal growth. It definitely plays a key role in whether an employee feels loyal to an organization to stay. And then there's also benefits to the organization as well, because now we're getting skills and education and other items that we would not necessarily have had in that particular role that we're retaining with experience over time.
Yes, sir.
With the targeted changes, I'm on board. I do think that there's a benefit to education. I'm not sure if I agree with that will keep people, but, you know, there is a happy factor of being in a place where people feel valued, and this is a nice perk. I think if Bill Millers can do it, I think the city of Fairhope can do it. And we don't know how many people actually take part in this program. I hope a lot of people do, if this go ahead and do this, because I think it does produce, has the ability to produce a more valued employee and somebody with more education in their job skills. So I think this is personally, I think that this is a good move for us. And the 36 months adds to helps me with my anxiety about people being poached right away after we train them up.
And it's 36 months, but it's actually 4 years before they'll get 100%, 4 years employed before they'll get 100% of that first tuition, because you have to be employed for 12 months before you can apply. So it's technically, you know, probably like 2.5 years before they're really, take classes steady after that first year. Starting to add dollars up.
The requirement, if they were to leave, the requirement to pay the city back prorated, that's enforceable?
Yes.
Okay.
Good comments. I didn't know Bill Miller's offered also.
They do.
Second career? Third career?
Any questions from anybody else here tonight? From council then, can I get a motion to approve a resolution amending the City of Fair Oaks Ranch's Personal Policies, Section 17.04 Tuition Reimbursement Program?
So moved.
Scott, in a second. Jonathan. Any further discussion from council? Everybody good? Motion on the table, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is approved. Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for walking us through those.
Yes, sir.
The last consideration item that we have tonight on the agenda, the consideration and possible action approving a resolution approving a resolution to approve the Kendall County Appraisal District's proposal to renovate and expand its current office building. And Scott, you're going to kick this off?
I will kick it off, yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor Council. Tonight, the Kendall County Appraisal District, and we have a couple of representatives here tonight. They're requesting approval to issue debt for an expansion of its existing administrative building. Under state law, this expansion must be approved by at least 3 of the 5 taxing jurisdictions that compose the district. Those include Kendall County itself, the 2 cities, Fair Oaks Ranch and Bernie, and the 2 school districts. The city previously, back in 2010, approved the building of its current building. That was in 2010, like I said, and this request is in addition to that existing facility. As it shows in your materials, the district currently employs 17 staff, and they anticipate hiring, I believe it's 4 additional positions to address growth in the entire county, as well as additional protest volume, and the district is currently at capacity at their location. This project would be financed through debt that the district would take out, and that debt would be allocated as a proportional share to each jurisdiction of its, the proportional share of the levy relative to the entire district levy. So currently, our city, Fair Oaks Ranch, we contract with all 3 counties to perform appraisals within each of the respective counties. For Kendall County, we pay a little over $17,000 per year currently for all of the appraisal services. This proposal would add an additional about $1,162 as estimated currently going forward, and that would be effective if approved. Next fiscal year budget, FY27, would not be effective this year. Again, we do have representatives with the district tonight if you have questions or for additional information.
Hey,
At that time,
Mr.
I'll
Barron,
turn it
would you
to
mind coming up real quick too? So I wanted to introduce the chief appraiser from the Kendall County Appraisal District, Ms. Zapata.
Yes.
But I'd also like to introduce Mr. Barron, who is a resident of Fair Oaks Ranch and who we appointed to the board to serve on the Kendall County Appraisal District. So, thank you very much for your service, and I know council may not have met you yet. So I just wanted to introduce you and let you know who we appointed.
Very good.
And thank you for your service and in helping us to get through this action.
Happy to help. Why don't you go?
And are there any questions that you might have?
Has this already been approved by other jurisdictions?
Yes, we currently have the city of Bernie. They have approved it. That's the only entity that has approved it.
Has anyone said no?
Not yet.
Okay,
Not yet.
It hasn't come before any of the other.
got it. So one for one so far.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right.
And the purpose of this is you guys are out of meeting space because there's increase in property tax protesting meetings.
Yes, sir. Correct. The
Our
protest-
residents could,
Yes, it would be used by the taxpayers as well, yes.
Well, I think, and you mentioned increase in protests, but I think overall you've seen a significant increase in properties that are being managed by the appraisal district.
That is correct. The subdivisions that are coming in, the new homes, the existing homes that are being expanded. So yes, we have quite a few subdivisions that are bringing in new properties that we are having to pick up and measure.
And so with
That
that,
would-
more interaction, which does include people coming in to challenge their appraisal values.
yeah, I think
That's
that number
correct.
was in the,
Yes,
like, over tripled.
protests have, yes, up to 6,900 at 2024, I believe. But still over 6,000 protests.
Yeah, so when I was appointed y'all appointed me this past year. So I've been on the board for right at about a year now. So when all this came up, I was at first a little skeptical, quite frankly. And so we really delved into different opportunities that there could have been, whether we sell the whole building, try to find something else, even rent, so on and so forth, and nothing ever really made sense. And after seeing the facilities that they have right now, they are just on top of each other. And they're in desperate need of additional facilities because they can't service all of the property owners right now that they need to service in a timely manner. And it's getting it in the next, if we don't do something in the next few years, it's gonna be critical. I mean, we'll be way behind on getting appraisals out, which means values may not be adjusted to what they need to be adjusted to, which ultimately affects the taxable income that the city receives. So it's really critical that we bring them up to date as far as for their building. It really is.
We
So that's
also do
kinda where we're at.
collections, I'm sorry. We
No.
also do collections, and currently our tax assessor collector and the deputy are sharing an 11 by 12 room with files. So it's getting really, really compact in there for us.
And the other thing about this is the city pays very nominal amount relative to what the other taxing districts pay. I think the school district pays 59%, and the county pays 40-some odd %. So, but we get a 1-for-1 vote too. So we get an equal vote, just like the city of Bernie and as well as the school district does. But the value that we're getting, or what we're having to pay, is very, very, very minimal from a city standpoint.
This is my first time to vote on something that's, multiple involved, but it's my understanding that we're here to make the best decision for the people that we represent, and not BISD or.
Sure.
That's correct. It's strictly for the city of Fair Oaks.
Any other questions? Everybody good?
Is the current office building you're talking about, going to have enough space to last X number of years? Or will that be expanded upon also down the road?
No, what we're gonna be doing is actually expanding that building we're gonna put another building adjacent to it and just tie them in together. So our plan is to try to start this in 2027. We're starting to work on plans now, but we really needed the approvals of all the tax districts in order to really move forward and start spending any kind of money on architects and so forth.
Any other questions from anyone here tonight? And for council, can I get a motion to approve a resolution to approve Kendall County Appraisal District's proposal to renovate and expand its current office building?
So moved.
Jonathan? And a second from Ruben. Any other discussion from council? The motion on the table, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion is approved.
Thank y'all.
Thank y'all both for being here tonight.
Appreciate it very much.
We do have one workshop item on the agenda tonight, which is the proposed amendments to the City of Fair Oaks Ranch Code of Ordinances, Chapter 3, Building Regulations, Article 3.01, General Provisions, Section 3.01.018, Driveways Passing Through Drainage Channels. Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. My name's Lee Muniz, Manager of Engineering. I'm here to present the workshop for the driveway ordinance amendments. Starting at page 232 of the agenda packet, by the way. So first, staff will be providing the council a timeline of events that lead to the amendments that will be proposed today. Next, show the existing ordinance as it exists today and verbiage from the UDC which applies to the ordinance. Also provide council an update on the existing driveway culvert data throughout the city and research data gathered from surrounding cities regarding driveway culvert criteria. Finally, information regarding 3 main factors that go into the design of a culvert and staff ordinance amendment recommendations. So here's a timeline. It's pretty straightforward. The ordinance was adopted back in 2005. Then in 2019, the UDC was adopted that included language that was related to the ordinance. And finally, back in October, staff presented the initial set of amendments to the driveway ordinance. So here's the exact ordinance that is located in the Code of Ordinances. The bold section of the ordinance would be the section that staff would be recommending to amend. So on this slide, staff has highlighted a subsection of the UDC that requires watercourses to remain free of obstructions unless authorized through an approved site plan. Driveways can be considered an obstruction unless the submitted plans demonstrate the stormwater can pass freely. This is where staff has identified a conflict between the current ordinance and the UDC. So during an October City Council meeting, staff presented an initial set of proposed ordinance amendments. These included requiring a driveway permit, pre and post construction surveys, professional engineering design for all driveway culverts, and granting Public Works the authority to approve or deny driveway designs and construction. Of the 4 proposed amendments, City Council did not support the requirement that all driveway culverts be designed by a professional engineer. So I evaluated all the existing driveway crossings throughout the city and documented their condition, material type, and number of culvert pipes. The results of this evaluation are shown on this slide. Each culvert's condition was assessed based on visual inspection, including the condition of the pipe itself, the amount of cover over the pipe, and the conditions of the drainage channel immediately upstream and downstream. Most of the culverts evaluated are corrugated metal pipes with a large concentration located in the north portion of the city, which is also the older part of the city. The evaluation includes only driveway culverts serving residential and commercial properties and does not include street crossings or driveways without a culvert. So I reviewed the driveway permitting practices in surrounding hill country cities to compare their regulations with our current ordinance. During the review, I learned that neighboring cities typically issue driveway permits as part of the right-of-way permit, rather than a standalone driveway permit. Many of these cities primarily curb streets, which generally do not require driveway culverts because stormwater is conveyed within the street. I also found that these cities require applicants to submit sufficient documentation for driveway construction, including drainage analysis prepared by a professional engineer. Once the plans and supporting documentation are reviewed and found to be adequate, the city approves the plans and issues the permits. So this slide summarizes the 3 core elements we look at when a driveway includes a culvert. The first is hydrology, which answers a simple question: how much water is coming to that point during a design storm event? We look at the contributing drainage area and expected rainfall to understand the peak flow the culvert needs to handle. Secondly is hydraulics, which focuses on whether the culvert can safely convey the flow without backing water up into the streets, overtopping the driveway, or causing downstream erosion. That's where pipe size, slope, and inlet-outlet control conditions matter. Third is survey plans. The survey establishes existing grades and drainage paths, and the plans show how the driveway and culvert will be built to maintain positive drainage throughout the right-of-way. Together, these elements ensure a driveway culvert functions properly and does not create unintended drainage impacts. So on this slide, you'll see the amendments to the driveway ordinance recommended by staff. So first, a permit will be required for all driveways that have construction that connect to curbless streets. Second, applicants will be required to submit survey showing conditions before and after construction. Third, only new driveway culverts or significant changes to existing culverts will be required to be designed by a professional engineer. Fourth, the ordinance will allow an existing driveway culvert to be replaced with the same dimensions and a culvert size without an engineering analysis. However, if that existing culvert is smaller than the minimum 18-inch pipe diameter, it will need to be upgraded to meet the standard. Fifth, any existing driveways that do not currently have a culvert and are proposing to add one will be required to have the design completed by a professional engineer. And finally, the amendment will grant Public Works Department the authority to review and approve all driveway construction plans. So in conclusion, based on the direction from the City Council tonight, staff will begin working on updates to the ordinance. The proposed changes will be brought back to the City Council at a future meeting to review and approve. If approved, staff will move forward with implementing changes and updating all related documents and processes for driveway construction. And that concludes my presentation today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Could you go back one slide? And then any questions from council?
How much does a topographic survey typically cost?
Depending on what the lengths of it is, it could range from, for this type of driveway, anywhere from the range from 1,000 to 4,000, and that's rough.
Times 2, because you have to get pre and post.
Correct, but most of the time, what they do is a surveyor will go out there and just field verify. So sometimes, whenever they get these surveys, they negotiate that as part of the fee, the pre and post.
Everyone would have to do that, not just new applicants. Anyone looking to change, even if it's insignificant.
Correct.
And then if it's significant, plus the engineering design, which I think we talked about last time was a couple $1,000s as well.
But if they're just replacing what they have and it's bigger than the 18-inch, then they don't have to do any of that, correct?
Correct.
They still have to get the topographic.
Yeah, they still pay
Do
the
you have to get
survey.
the topographic?
Correct. Now, there are certain circumstances where, let's just say they're coming in and they had an asphalt driveway. They want to come in with a concrete driveway. We wouldn't ask for a topographic survey if they're maintaining the existing grades. Something like that.
Okay, wouldn't you, let's take an existing driveway, not a new one that needs to be replaced, and it's greater than your 18-inch, okay? Wouldn't we know if water is not working properly through that current one? The reason I'm asking that, I mean, would we know if prior to all that, would we know if these big rains and stuff that culvert's creating a problem or not? If it's not creating a problem and they're just merely replacing it, would it make sense to make them go through a topographical survey
So
if we already know it?
So when you ask about whether we know this culvert is functioning correctly,
Yeah,
based on a design storm event. So that would mean we would have to have data showing that a design storm event has occurred for the watershed draining for that culvert and monitor it and evaluate whether there's any sort of impacts. Because we can have multiple rain events in a watershed, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're the design storm event that's supposed to be used to design these culverts. And we haven't really had the design storm event.
But if they're gonna do something that is either the same or better, why would we have them incur that financial burden of a topographical survey if we don't have any evidence of a problem to begin with, and they're improving it?
We would need the pre and post to have an idea of what is existing out there. So that way, when we come after construction, evaluate it to ensure that they did do exactly what they said. We are replacing pre and post.
Is there a way they can accomplish that without having to pay thousands of dollars, though? I mean, can we just have somebody go out and look?
Take a picture.
I guess to help answer, I think the intent is not to make it overly burdensome for replacement or changes to existing driveways. Just discussing with Scott, we don't think that the need for a pre and post topographic survey would apply to an existing driveway, but definitely for new driveways.
Sure, yeah, because there wasn't a driveway there before.
Correct.
So you're obviously going to impact the flow of stuff because
Correct.
something new is gonna be there. So, yeah, I mean, my question was simply was simply targeted towards if we are doing an exact replacement or better, making it bigger so stuff can flow better, then I don't know why we would need to require,
Intent is for
that.
if it's new,
right?
discuss, or if there's a major change, like we're making it much wider for some reason, or
Okay.
changes the footprint of that's when we would need new.
Something that could
Based on
potentially
the council
alter
direction.
the drainage
Right.
system. Okay, and I get that. I think we need to make sure that that's clear, though, because in the future, we know as we sit here today that that's the intent. But in the future, when we aren't the ones sitting here, and, you know, if you've gone on to bigger and brighter futures of some sort, and you're not here to tell, you know, to know that that's what the intent was, we have to have it clear enough so the future folks that are in charge know that that's what we were intending.
We'll make sure when the amendment to the ordinance is drafted that it will incorporate that intent. Yes.
I would think there'd need to be, if there's an existing driveway, and there is a change, I think there needs to be a little bit more detail on what would be considered a significant change. Because if you're gonna widen your driveway by 2 feet, is that significant, or is it if you're doubling it, like, so, some sort of threshold so we can objectively determine and consider what's significant and what's insignificant, where you don't have to go through all the steps if you're just widening or improving your driveway.
We talked about that internally, and in previously, we discussed that exact scenario, or that hypothetical, and I would caution against being too prescriptive, only because of the example that Lee gave, among others, that there could be a lot of variables that we don't necessarily account for. And with specific respect to the scenario you described, if we have, say, an 11-foot driveway, side, that's a nearly 50% increase. So to me, that sounds significant, but depending on the slopes and designs, it may or may not be. So I think a little discretion there would actually be beneficial to the applicant. That's why I caution about being too prescriptive.
And on that hypothetical, likely, if someone widens their driveway 50%, the grades and slopes don't change, and they keep the same size culverts, which never had an issue before, is adding width, would that actually affect flow if the culverts remain the same and the grades remain the same?
It could, it just depends. Let's just say they replace the existing and not all the water's going through the pipe. It's going over, so it's overtopping. So that's where you would see any effects on that. So a substandard culvert would only get a portion of the flow. The rest of the flow will go over, and by extending it, you're extending that water having to travel over the road. And that could be typical because there's a lot of undersized culverts in our area.
I think it could be worded in such a way that it's like, any changes less than 25% or something like that. Or like prima facie, they're probably good. However, it's still at the discretion of the engineering team, should there be special circumstances that would require a change. Or, you know what I mean? Like you could work it in there that on its face, a smaller change is fine, but there still could be certain circumstances and will be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. Something to that effect, so that way it's like, this is our intent, that we don't really want to mess with stuff if it's not really going to change much, but we understand there might be certain circumstances depending on the layout of the land and whatever, that maybe it still would need to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis.
The other thing is, if you have an existing driveway that, number 5, if you have an existing driveway that doesn't have a culvert, and then they are gonna add a culvert which would improve flow?
Not
they'd still have-
necessarily.
Not necessarily?
Because by putting a culvert, you reduce the flow area significantly. Versus having it open, your flow area in that channel is essentially unobstructed. By putting a culvert there, you are obstructing that flow. So it significantly reduces the flow area.
Okay.
Give me an example of an area where this is an issue. I'm having a hard time living on the north side, okay, on Meadow Creek Trail. We barely have ditches. We barely have drainage ditches over there. And I'm trying to think of the last rain event where this has become an issue that we're, as a governing body, we're thinking about dropping a $2,000 to $5,000 engineering fee on somebody who just wants to make their driveway better. I understand what you're trying to do.
Correct.
But I want to understand where this is an issue.
There was an issue off of, I believe it was Silver Spur. We had to improve that drainage channel in that area just because of the flow in that area. And it's a pretty significant area, about 50 acres draining down the road where it does impact multiple driveways. And then that's where you could start seeing those impacts is those
Driveways were the issue, or the fact that we had busted up drainage waterways.
Mhm.
I wonder, I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around this. I think others here are having the same issue. I don't want to be over-restrictive on people that want to make improvements.
Correct.
When the root problem is not the driveway. You know, it's the fact that there was no, and having lived through this
Mhm.
on Meadow Creek Trail, where water was overtopping the road, it wasn't because of somebody's driveway up, it was because water was coming over the top of the road. And it became an issue. And so, help me out here.
Yeah. There are other situations, I don't have them immediately at my hand, but I do know that there are, so a lot of the areas in Fair Oaks Ranch, what I've noticed is we have steep slopes. And so whenever you have an obstruction in a steep slope, your velocities are increased, and then as it hits that obstruction, it causes what we call eddies, which are disturbances in the areas. And then as it goes through that channel, it also, you can't put a flat slope on a driveway culvert. So that means at a steep slope, those velocities are fast through that culvert. So that also incurs more erosion. So that's where you'll start seeing the problems. If you start looking at most of these bar ditches, you'll notice that a great deal of them have erosion in the steeper slopes. There are also other issues, I believe off of Rolling Acres Trail, where we have multiple culverts that are that don't have positive slope because they were built at different times. So now you have a situation where we cannot create positive drainage from driveway to driveway because one of the culverts is higher when it should be lower so that we can maintain that flow through there. And we've had to do repairs within those channels because of that.
Well, and I can see that. I'm thinking of Robindale as the one road over there that we did a lot of work and actually rebuilt the drainage flow there. But I'm thinking that as it's easy to come up with a plan for a road like Post Oak, which just got rebuilt.
Correct.
Right, and we have actual ditches over there.
Mhm.
And part of Rolling Acres would probably get fixed, I think, with drainage as we move forward with our road construction on that portion of Rolling Acres, I guess, from Ammon to the far side grant.
Flagstone Hill.
Flagstone Hill, right. So, and I know that area is susceptible to flooding as well.
Correct.
Okay. But I just want to make sure before we're going to put requirements for PEs and expenses on the property owner, that we're facing the real issue when it comes to drainage. I'll leave it at there, because this is a drag on, correct?
Yeah.
But
I mean-
until you live that dream,
Yeah.
you know, with not being able to get across your driveway, I understand that, and if it needs to be fixed, that's fine. But, you know, years of sediment builds up through these things, and let's see about fixing the issues where it's an issue. But, and where does that cost? And topographic, we're talking about a lot of science here.
Correct.
I get it. Thank you.
So Lee, we're talking about when someone wants to either put a new driveway in or replace their existing one. So what has been our problem with our current ordinance? Do we not have the teeth in it to address an issue with replacement? Because this ordinance is not going to affect what Scott was suggesting. Existing culverts are not going to be touched, so this ordinance has no impact on them. We're not requiring them to improve them to improve drainage, but when somebody's changing theirs out, I mean, if you got all this upstream culverts that are not compliant, what is the problem we're trying to solve here? What has been the resistance we have? I'm kind of lost too now while we're going down this road.
It's a twofold problem, and the immediate catalyst was the bold-faced portion there that the Congress says that effectively says that the city will design the culvert, which we do not want. So that was the immediate thing we want to fix. The larger scale issue is our overall drainage system. channels and culverts, whether they're public or private, are a huge component of our drainage system. So as a priority, we want to ensure that all of the components of our drainage are in the best shape they can be. Rome was not built in a day, as it were, so it will be many, many years before we matriculate through so we have an upgraded system, but this is part of it. So in Lee's analysis of what other cities do, as he mentioned, a lot of our peer cities have largely curved streets where it's not an issue. Just like here, if you're on a curved street, it's not an issue. This pertains to culverts. We do have neighboring counties, both Kendall and Comal, that do have provisions and standards similar to this, including culverts for that reason, because that's the only way they can maintain flow through their properties, their jurisdictions as well.
So the only property we have that this kind of applies to is pretty much the northern portion where we have the larger.
Some in the southern as well.
Correct, yes.
And some, but the new developments we have are all gonna have curved streets, right? Like Post Oak and.
No.
Oak Bend? No?
Oak Bend does not
Oak
have
Bend is
curb
not gonna
street.
have 'em? Okay.
No, they will have bar ditches as well too. Post Oak, I believe, will have curb streets. Stone Creek has curb streets.
So my thinking, if you're putting a new one in, or you want to significantly expand it, maybe you have to get to the engineering study. Just fixing the existing one, and it's equal to or better, that you really shouldn't require anything. Or else the city needs to help them. If we're trying to improve the city's drainage, we need to have some kind of.
And that's the intent based on the previous workshop we had. We still want them permitted because we still want to take a look at that.
Of course.
But the intent is if it's a like for like replacement with no significant change.
I mean, permit, fine, yeah, I don't have a problem there. I was just thinking that requiring that topographical and engineering study to replace my culvert, and I'm not changing anything but putting a more robust one in, cost should transfer down. That's just my opinion.
That's largely what we covered in the last workshop too, so I think we're all kind of on that same page. One issue that I had, and I talked to Scott about this a little bit before, and it's who's gonna figure out what a significant change is?
Mm-hmm.
And it even says in here that, you want your role to be to review and approve the plans. You're trying to stay out of it, but here you're kind of putting yourself in the game again because you're gonna be the one. So I'd agree that if we could figure out reasonably some kind of margin of change, right?
Correct.
To the existing, then we'd be a lot better off with the final product. And length really isn't important to me, but width and slope for sure. Changing those a percentage out of whatever percentages we feel. In terms of these significant changes. Right now, there's just really not a whole lot to decide on with what's written.
Yeah, off the top of my head, considering significant change, the easiest way that I can think of determining is that if it somehow increases flow, but you won't know that unless you do an engineering study. So, because if your changes are dramatically changing the flow, then that is a significant change. Because really, someone can change something on one culvert, and if the watershed is small, you're not going to see much of a difference of anything. But if it's a larger watershed, any little change could have impacts. It's hard to associate a significant change that could have impacts, because that's the goal. If you're changing something and it has impacts, that's what we're trying to avoid. And so by putting a limit on a change, that may work for one culvert because of the watershed, but this other culvert, it may not work. It may have an impact because of that change.
I understand, but the house in particular that brought all this up, right? You remember the house that started this whole thing? The solution was they ended up putting the 18-inch culvert in, right? As long as they're upsizing to 18 from a smaller existing.
Mhm.
Whatever reason,
Yeah. I mean, I was just speaking on significant change. That's one way that could,
In an example, the initial proposal was less than an 18.
Right.
Final solution,
Yeah.
but it took.
Got up to the 18.
it
and
took an
seems like
engineering
18
analysis to get that to that
But it
18.
does seem like 18 is a pretty good number throughout the city, from what I understand.
I agree, yep.
Any other questions? Can you go back to the slide with the changes? Yeah, David. David.
What is your design and event? What do we have to aim for?
The 10-year storm event for driveways.
And I was kind of going through this, trying to figure out what it is that we agree on right away. So, new permit for new driveways. Brand new driveway being installed requires the hydrolysis, the hydraulic, requires permit, the 2 surveys, and engineering design. Correct?
Correct.
Nobody has a problem with that one.
Was that required before?
Right, but they would come to the city for the design.
Correct, for the
And
culvert design.
that's what's being changed.
Mhm.
And so what's an existing driveway? Are we tearing out the driveway down to the culvert? What defines the requirement for an existing driveway?
If it exists, you have a driveway connecting to, that's within our right of way, that is considered a driveway.
So, I have a house, I've lived in it for 20 years, it
Mhm.
has an existing driveway, I'm not doing anything. I have to come get a permit?
No, this is only for construction to that driveway.
Or is it construction to the culvert in the driveway?
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to find. What does existing driveway mean? So you
Mhm.
say I have to get a separate permit for new, I understand that.
Correct.
What does it mean existing driveway?
Is it the ingress egress to your house and that's your main driveway?
If you're reconstructing said existing
So if I'm
driveway.
taking out, and how far? Down to the culvert, replacing the culvert?
I mean,
So what if I'm retopping the top of the driveway?
yes.
It has no impact on the culvert at all?
Mhm. Yes, the permit would be required for that. Permit.
Yeah.
Just like you would get a building permit.
What's the
for-
permit
Permit
cost?
application.
What's the permit cost?
I think we have it at $50.
$50. So you'd have to give them $50 and say, hey, I'm putting a new layer over the top of
That's
the culvert.
just so that we can inspect?
Just so that we know
We
what's going
have,
on.
we have regulations to how they connect to our street, because that is the biggest goals. How you connect to our streets.
That's fine.
Because if you're have a concrete driveway, you're required to have a 30-inch asphalt
That's fine.
buffer.
I got it, Lee.
Okay,
I
sorry.
understand. Just trying to define
Yeah,
it to make sure we understand what it is, so.
Correct.
And then, so I'd be required to get the permit. And so now, I think we talked about the pre and post construction topographic surveys for existing driveways would not be required? Is that what would? Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
getting to that.
for, okay, so
So only with a significant change?
significant change,
Yes.
correct,
So if no significant change,
It-
not required,
correct.
okay? And so then we were trying to define what is significant change.
Correct.
Wider?
And so you put this,
10% wider?
the 18-inch diameter down there.
Correct.
Is that what you're defining as significant change? So if we have 18-inch or bigger already down there, or if I'm replacing it with the same diameter, it's not significant change?
So that's considered more for the culvert. There's a lot of existing driveways that don't have any culverts. We didn't provide a criteria for a significant change. And
Well,
so,
I understand Scott's point too. So, one, we're looking at it and we're trying to define it very specific. Which we're kind of looking at it as protection of residents. But I think Scott's point is by keeping it interpretive, they're looking at that they can protect residents when they come in and they can review it and say, hey, this is, if I'm putting words in your mouth, please correct me, but it allows them flexibility to work with residents to say that, hey, at this time it's not required. Y'all can go ahead and do what you need to do. Is that,
But then it comes down to the guy who's had a bad day, when you come walk in the door, right? I mean, I'm sorry, I don't agree.
Yeah, I like the way Emily put it. You go off on greener pastures, and then what do we got? There, and this is just how we do it.
If it's not going to change the drainage.
Well, I think that
That's subjective.
Councilmember's
right.
suggestion was a good start. We also have examples, again, from not only the cities, but our county jurisdictions that can guide us as well. We're clearly not at a point where we're ready to propose an ordinance, but the intent of this workshop was to get what the mayors do and get a consensus on what we do agree on.
I think the point we've gotten to now is we need to define significant change. Because that's what either includes or eliminates the requirement to get the survey and to get the engineering design, correct?
Yep.
I don't know the answer to it. I think all else, I think we're okay. So if I'm redoing the top of my driveway, I'm getting it re-asphalted. I need a permit because I have to connect with the street.
Correct.
Our building officials need to come out and inspect it, which is why they get the permit. I understand that. But just redoing the top, I don't fall into any of this.
no,
No.
no, you don't.
And so it's just, at what point does a pre-existing driveway fall into this requirement? And maybe that falls into the same of considerable change.
I think the intent was to keep undersized culverts out, right? So if somebody wanted to go from a 24 to an 18, that would definitely hit the buzzer, and we know that that 18 could handle that water.
Correct.
Two 18s, or however they wanted to do it.
Yeah. Or if they came in with a 12-foot
I
culvert.
got all that. What I'm trying to narrow it down, what is it that we're looking for that needs to come back as part of this?
I think it's if it affects the drainage. If you were going to affect the flow of water.
Right, yeah.
Right.
That's the problem.
Well, maybe. I think what we've kind of all decided on is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you have there, city requires an 18-inch minimum pipe diameter. So if somebody has a 12-inch diameter culvert and they want to go in and redo their driveway and they're going to put in an 18-inch, which is the city minimum requirement, then I don't think that should fall under significant change, even though it's going from a 12 to an 18. If you were to go from a 24 to an 18, I think that would be considered a significant change because it would slow everything down. And I think that's what needs to be defined. If you are going from a smaller size to at least the minimum or bigger, I think that should be allowed.
Well, I think it just comes down to, we need a definition of what significant change is.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, that's what I'm trying to help,
Yeah, yeah.
help to define, is give these general things. Now, you can still have catch-all language in there, that there are certain, you know, specific situations, depending on what the property might be. And if the city manager determines that there is some kind of very specific situation that would require an engineering survey, then you gotta do what he says. And that would be up to the staff. But we still have kind of this prima facie blanket language that if it meets this criteria, on its face, it should be good, subject to any very specific unique circumstances.
Which is the direction that we're heading, right? And we even, we have some of the 18-inch, like you talked about, we have the language already in there to where if you're going to 18, you're fine. You've got an existing ditch, 12-inch, under what I'm reading here, if I'm reading it correct, if you've got a 12-inch and you're putting in this 18 and you're not changing the slope, you're not changing the length, good, you know. Am I reading that right?
That's 100% true.
Okay, could you say it one more
It's
time
the
again?
significant. it
So
comes
if you've
back
got
to
it,
what's
if
the-
you've got a 12-inch, right, and you've got your
Yes.
slope, you've got everything figured out. If you're doing nothing but replacing that pipe, let's say it's just rotting out, right? But you go back and you put an 18-inch pipe and don't change anything else, don't change the length, then that's not significant change.
Correct.
Yeah, that's already baked in.
Yeah, because then you're upsizing to the minimum standard.
That's right.
Without putting an identical pipe length with nothing changes and you're upsizing to 18.
Yeah, but under that scenario, if you have a 12-inch and you're going to 18 and you don't have to do any of this stuff because it's not a significant change. But if you don't have a culvert and you're going to 18, that is a significant change and you'd have to go through all this process, even though you're improving it.
Well, again, putting a culvert significantly reduces the flow area of something that does not have a culvert. Yeah.
I would agree with that, if it's a driveway without a culvert, then that needs to have a study.
Well, then that's a brand-new driveway.
Well, that's the point. How many people have been replacing their how many culverts have come to y'all for replacement that are existing? Not new.
Existing, probably about a handful. I don't have the immediate number because we've done probably about a handful. Yeah, that'd be safe to say.
And were most of those replaced with the same dimensions as previous, or did they upsize?
One of them was the same. They put that material in as a driveway, and that one didn't require a study. Another one did a study to ensure that it was sized adequately because there was a larger watershed draining to it. Another one had to get an engineering design to put that in to determine, most of them, it's a mixed bag. So it's not necessarily all the existing ones. Some of them did upsize, some of them didn't.
So Lee, if we looked at no significant change, so it's kind of what Jonathan was bringing up. So if they're upgrading to 18 inches or maintaining their current size of the culvert, current width of the culvert and length in the upgrade of the driveway, could that be considered no significant change?
Correct. If it,
No.
wait,
No, if you have 12-inch, you have to put in 18.
So you
Okay.
upgrade to 18?
yeah, he said
Yeah.
upgrade.
Okay, I thought you had two different scenarios.
So 12-inch upgrade to an 18-inch, same driveway width, depth, slope, material, everything's the same. You're just going from a 12-inch to 18-inch? No. The only
Or
thing
if-
you're
or
changing
if you're
is
at-
the 18-inch.
Or if you're at 18 inch, or you're at 24 inch, and you're just gonna replace it with the same width. If you're at 18 inch right now, I'm gonna put an 18 inch back in, same length. Is that no significant change?
Okay, 18-inch put into a 24-inch, is that what you're saying, upgrading?
If I have an 18 inch,
Uh-huh,
I'm gonna replace it with 18 inch in same length,
Same
no
grades.
significant change.
that's the same, that's basically replacing existing, so no, that would not be a significant change.
And then what if I went to 24 inch?
That could be a significant change if you're increasing the amount of flow area.
I think he's talking about not changing the length, but just making the pipe top bigger.
Right.
Well, even then, I'm okay with it, just because if you've got a 24-inch pipe, you're gonna want somebody to go out there and take shots and make sure that both ends of that pipe are set right, because that's a lot of water. 24 is a lot of water.
I can tell you right now too that most of these bar ditches, you won't be able to squeeze a 24. You're gonna have to do some grading outside of your driveway just to have a connectivity.
And
Or you're gonna have a,
And I think that
Uphill
defines
battle.
it then. If you are going to anything greater than an 18-inch, then that's considered a significant change. Unless it's already, let's say you have a 24-inch and you're replacing it with a 24-inch, obviously that's not a significant change, you're just replacing that. But if you are upgrading from a 12 to an 18, that's what's required, not a significant change. But if you're gonna go above the 18-inch, then that's considered a significant change unless it's an exact replacement.
We've also got driveway widening, which is what they're trying to capture, and then also, if you're wanting to go smaller, which the property
That
that
would be a
started all this is the only reason we're talking about it, is because somebody wanted to go smaller than the city felt was safe, because it was at the bottom of a watershed.
Right, I think we'd said if you go smaller, then that's a significant change. Widening of a driveway, that's what we talked about earlier. Maybe you have some language in there, 25% bigger on its face, that should be fine, no significant change. If it's gonna be any different than that, you need a study.
And I understand all this, and I think that you're gonna have to come back with some definitions, and I don't know if we do that as a policy, you know, that is something that's kind of a living document to see that if we need to make a change, and, you know, we can do that. But I think that, again, the discussion is, how much money does the property owner have to shell out to a PE for additional studies, topographic studies and stuff, for something that is not specifically going to be an issue or a significant change? And I think that's what I would be most interested to see. Because right now, I'm not there. I would really like to see some more, I guess, clear-cut definitions on what the significance is.
I think that's what we were trying to get to, and so.
We
I
came here
think-
looking for direction on the type of language that we wanted to include in the draft. I think we have that.
Whether it's in this policy or it's tied into a separate policy, is there a mechanism in place if the homeowner disagrees with the approval or the requirement, and does it go to like the Board of Appeals or whatever? Is that mechanism in place to where it can be challenged if they don't feel that it is a significant change or whatever? Okay.
Do we beat this one to death?
I was trying to get to an end point here, is really what I was trying to do, you know?
What?
You have enough, Lee? to
no, I
move
can take
forward?
more. I can keep going.
Yeah, we can talk all night.
More than enough.
He has enough.
You think it's,
All jokes aside,
Is that what you
I
said?
know
Thank
it
you for your input.
wasn't very exact, but I believe it provided enough
Get the
guidance
direction,
to
yeah.
move forward with. Okay.
all right, thank you.
Thanks, Lee.
What if a horse walks over the drain?
Well, then,
Oh, you know, so we have bridges in the city too, cross ditches, and it's not just culverts, so.
all right, the last item we have on tonight is a report from staff to cover our financial and investment report, and I'll turn it over to Summer.
Yes, thank you. So this is the quarterly financial update and investment report as of December 31st, and my presentation begins on page 247. So starting with the governmental funds, this includes our tax-supported operations, primarily the general fund, along with special revenue, debt service, and our strategic and capital project funds. But looking at general fund revenues at a high level, total budgeted general fund revenues for the year are approximately $11.4 million, and based on current trends, we're projecting about $11.5 million. That positive variance is primarily driven by increases in property tax collections and sales tax performance, which I'll walk through on the next slides. But overall, general fund revenues are tracking slightly ahead of budget. So for property taxes, our 2025 levy at certification was $7.74 million, and with adjustments to date, the levy is now $8.05 million. That is after appraisal review board actions. At the end of December, we had collected almost 64% of the levy, which is consistent with where we expect to be at this point in the fiscal year. And so we are projecting a positive variance to budget of almost $65,000. Sales tax continues to perform well. We're projecting an increase of $108,461 over budget, and that is 5.3% over the prior year's figures. Looking at new residential home permits, so from October through December, the city issued 4 new residential home permits, but that level of activity does align with our budget assumptions. Several developments, including Post Oak, Oak Bend Estates, and the Corley Tract, have yet to be developed, but they do represent future residential growth. Other permanent revenues, such as additions, remodels, fences, and swimming pools, those are also expected to meet budget. Moving on to general fund expenditures. So personnel costs are tracking slightly over budget, approximately $126,000. That's assuming we remain fully staffed for the remainder of the year. So the budget assumes a normal level of routine vacancies, and so this variance is primarily due to having fewer vacancies than anticipated, which is a positive operational outcome. We will continue to monitor personnel costs closely, and if necessary, we could address any overages through a future budget amendment. But based on the current revenue and expenditure projections, the general fund is expected to end the year with a decrease in total fund balance of over $142,000. It's about $20,000 more than what was originally budgeted. Even with that additional use of fund balance, the general fund remains in a strong financial position. The emergency reserve is projected at $3.59 million. That represents 4 months of operating expenditures. The budget stabilization reserve is projected at $1.8 million, or 2 months of operating expenditures. And then unassigned fund balance is expected to total $2.8 million. Now looking at the other governmental fund balances, the bond capital fund is decreasing as planned. Those are the expenditures for the roadway CIP projects that are currently planned or underway, and these are funded from the GO bond proceeds. The Strategic and Capital Projects Fund is also decreasing as budgeted. Those are for the approved projects, which I'll walk through in more detail on the next 2 slides. The Equipment Replacement Fund is increasing to support future capital asset replacement. The Debt Service Fund balance is increasing slightly, primarily due to the increased tax levy. And then we're also seeing small increases in the court-related special revenue funds, and that reflects just the normal activity. But looking at the Strategic Capital Projects Fund, so this slide highlights capital projects. These include engineering costs for Dietz Elkhorn Road project, the Old Fredericksburg Road project, several drainage projects, and appropriations for potential upgrades to Fire Station Number 3. Tonight, Council just approved the construction contract for the front gate left turn lane. And based on first quarter activity, overall projections are maintained in line with the budget, but as projects move forward and scopes are further refined, staff will continue to monitor expenditures and update projections as needed. So at this time, we anticipate identifying sufficient savings within this capital program to absorb the cost of the left turn lane project. Looking at the strategic projects within this fund, these include the Facilities Master Plan, which is currently in the RFQ review process, the strategic planning process now underway, completion of the compensation study as staff finalizes some internal documentation with the consultant, and ongoing records management efforts. Again, based on first quarter activity, we've left projections consistent with the budget, though they may be adjusted as the projects continue to move forward. So moving on to the utility funds, which are our rate-supported operations. Utility revenues are tracking in line with budget with a modest projected increase in operating revenues of $3,500 at this time. These projections are likely to change as we move into the higher usage spring and summer months. Utility expenditures are currently projected to exceed budget, primarily due to personnel costs, assuming the full staffing for the remainder of the fiscal year. But as with the general fund, actual expenditures may come in lower depending on vacancy timing, so we'll continue to closely monitor spending and update projections as the year progresses. The operating income after depreciation is projected to reflect a loss of approximately $755,000, which is typical for capital-intensive utility operations. Depreciation represents, the long-term infrastructure investment rather than cash outlays. But despite the operating loss, the utility system remains financially sound. Total net position is projected to increase by about $1.3 million. That reflects the continued investment in our capital assets and the maintenance of operating reserves. So while depreciation reduces the reporting operating income, it does not affect cash, and the overall financial position of the utility system continues to strengthen. But with that, I'll close with a brief update on the city's investments. So the city's investments are held with Frost Bank, that's our operating account, and 3 local government investment pools, TexPool Prime, and Texas Class. And for the quarter ended December 31st, the city earned a total of $333,129 in interest, with the investment pool yields generally in line with or exceeding comparable U.S. Treasury rates during the quarter. That concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Good report. As always, very thorough.
Thank you. First quarter is the easiest, I think. Not too much to report yet.
Any questions from anyone here tonight? Thanks, Summer.
Thank you.
That completes the items that we had on the agenda tonight. Do we have any announcements from council members they'd like to make? Nope. All right, I got a couple. We'll be hosting an open house on Monday, February 9th. That's this coming Monday, to share details about the upcoming Ammon Road project. It'll be right here in this room from 4 to 6 p.m. on Monday evening. And this is a come and go, correct? Anytime between 4 and 6?
It is, but there will be a brief presentation at the beginning for the project overview.
Okay. Second announcement, Election Day for the primary elections is on March 3rd. It's coming up. Early voting begins February 17th and will run through February 27th. For this election, residents must vote in the respective county voting locations. For Bexar County residents, they will be able to vote right here in this room for early voting and for Election Day voting. And the city has been going through an update to its strategic plan. Jim Williams has been leading us through that update. We did have a stakeholders group, steering committee, a lot of opportunities, open house to provide comments. He still has the website portion open to provide comments. Residents can log on to it and provide comments. And he is going to close that at midnight on Monday night. Currently, we have about a little over 350 respondents as part of that. And so we're just encouraging people with the last couple days that we have to get additional comments in, which will be utilized in the update of the strategic plan. Some good news. SafeWise released its rankings of the 2026 safest cities in Texas. That was released last Thursday. And Fair Oaks Ranch went from the 16th safest city to the 5th safest city in the state. So for 2026, we moved up to number 5. And just probably noticed it, but our next council meeting will be on March 5th. We canceled the one in February. Scott, that's all I got. Anything else to add? Or?
I think you covered it, sir.
And council members, anything that y'all want added to a future agenda? Driveways. It's coming. All right, Amanda, anything I missed, or other than the Pledge of Allegiance? And Scott, from your perspective, anything? All right. I have the time now is 8:54, and we are adjourned.